Right, well, first of all, I just want to tell us about the cheese and what I hear and the thing with Asda.
Yeah, well, that's what I've launched a sort of nationwide cheese range. I've been making sort of quite nichey, stinky cheese until now, but my kids didn't like it, so I sort of went back to the drawing board and to make a range that I could, because like things like cheese on toast is the ultimate universal snack that everybody loves. I can eat it with my parents, I can eat it with my kids. You can have it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, midnight in your underpants, and I can walk down the street and make people think of cheese. It's not something that I've really sort of engineered, but everyone knows I love cheese, and I started making. I was only making tiny quantities really, but it won lots of prizes, and so the next step was really to do something for that would appeal to everybody. So I went back to the drawing board, and I've been basically locked away in the Foodio for a year making 9 cheeses, which are now all on sale in Asda, and so that I'm just like out on the road seeing what people think about it. Cheesy rider.
Why was it Asda that you picked as opposed to any other store?
Well, when I invented Spudsworth, which is I developed I used to love. There's a cheese they do in France called raclette, which they melt it by a. It's a huge thing, and they melt it by a fire and have it. It starts to melt. They pour it on potatoes, and it's like orgasmic cheese. It's just amazing. I remember the first time I saw it, and I cried because I used to have a jacket potato with cheese every day after school, and I've always wanted to do it, but cheese actually behaves very well in microwaves. Cheddar, particularly, behaves well. But it's not really acidic enough to melt to give you a really unctuous kind of melt.
Right.
So I started messing around, mixing cheddar with more acidic cheeses. And then there's another cheese as well to give it that more of a sort of unctuous body. And I hit upon it, and I was like, it was a real eureka moment. I went running into the house, going, I've done it, I gave it to the kids for their tea, and they loved it, and then they wanted it again for breakfast, and I was like, well, I'm onto something. So I called all the supermarket cheese buyers and said, like, I've got something you might want to see. Went to see them all, and as they were like, so I was in boardrooms giving like PowerPoint presentations to steely-eyed cheese executives, packing my pants, I didn't know if they think I was an idiot or not. As they went, just love it, absolutely love it. There's a whole range. So then I started playing around with other things and came up with weird flavour combinations and I'm going to a Stilton factory later. Inventing cheese is really good fun.
Do you see that as a kind of creative process similar to making music?
Absolutely, it's the same. Yeah.
Do you get the same feeling when you make a cheese as to writing a song or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I think music and food are both two really visceral pleasures. Food's probably even more universal than music, actually. There's no barriers of race or creed or age or anything with food. And food's like the last 10 years has been really good, amazing time for British food. We didn't, when I was a kid, it was awful. I was saying to the radio station, I remember the first time I tried Red Leicester. The first time I saw it, like you couldn't get all you could get was cheddar. And it's amazing what's happened in Britain. Britain's now the most exciting place in the world for food, and there's a whole sort of culture that makes developing new food products and the willingness for people willing to try things as well. Because we were the culinary laughingstock of Europe since the war. It was the war that really decimated. We ran out of food.
Yeah.
My parents grew up with fucking rationing. Unbelievable. If you look at very early photographs of the Beatles when they were still called the Quarrymen, George Harrison was like borderline malnourished.
Yeah,
he was so thin, and it was that was as much of a problem as obesity is now. So I'm a food writer, and I think being in a band is brilliant, and if Blur were going to get back together, I'd jump at it. But actually, I live on a farm, and being in a band is. If you're going to have success in the music industry, it basically comes young. If it's going to happen when you're young, and it's best enjoyed young. You know, it gives you everything you want when you're young. It's like boozing and shagging and being rude and making lots of noise, and then going off to the next place. But yeah, I've got 5 kids and a wife, and you know, so I don't know really. Being, you know, it's you know, as I've got older, what I want out of life has changed, and it's nice being able to just fiddle around in the studio.
Fair enough.
But it was when we got back together to do those gigs, they were the best ones we've ever done. But we played here in 1990.
Oh really?
Amazing night.
We still see more then, or we Blur back?
Just Blur, just signed. Yeah, hadn't had a hit. She's So High, our first single.
Yeah.
I remember it because I copped off with the singer from the Darling Buds, who was dead fit. A legendary night.
So was that one still everyone still thought you were from Manchester?
I've ever met. No, that was before they thought we were from Manchester.
Yeah. Speaking of which, because I know that was, you said in your book when you went to America, it was everyone thought you were from Manchester.
Well, because there'd been this, like, all the Stone Roses and the Happy Mondays and the Charlatans, there'd been like loads of bands from Manchester, and they just thought. And to be fair, There's No Other Way was quite like a baggy, so it did have a sort of bit of a baggy feel to it. So it was probably an easy mistake for them to make. Yeah, we good to go back there as well.
So I mean, on the subject of Blur, I mean, Damon was talking about having another crack at America. I saw in the enemy this week. So that's something you'd be interested in then, if you...
Yeah, well, we're all meeting on Monday, so I don't know what happened. But,
really? Recording or just meeting up?
No, just like, you know, we meet up and I'll take some cheese, and Damon normally cooks.
Oh, cool.
We had kebabs the time before last, and then Damon did a very nice pasta last time. I brought some cheese. You know, it's the sort of thing that middle-aged men do.
Yeah.
You know, sit around.
Could you feasibly see yourself touring with them again, or was that?
Oh no, I'd love to. Yeah. I'm sure it'll happen one day. I don't know when, but.
I saw you also mentioned you did a song about Notting Hill Carnival, when there was some thoughts about that. Spoken word.
I mean, it was like that was literally just like a couple of hours mucking about with that poet. Poet Michael Horowitz. He's a very good man.
I know you did the Fool's Day song as well. Is that something you do, one-off releases like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know, like, whether albums exist anymore, or you know, you don't.
No.
The only reason that they existed in the first place because it was how record companies made money. They weren't because like music has to come out in 12-track chunks at a time. You know, you can do anything you want now. So I think it'd be interesting to see what we could do. You know, I think we could do something amazing.
That was one question I was going to ask you, actually, because obviously, I mean, one thing people associate Blur with is obviously the Blur Oasis type thing. Do you think nowadays that kind of big musical event that everyone knows about is less likely?
No, it's all a lot more niche now.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I think we might have been the last of the sort of news at 10. Hello.
Hi, so I wanted to ask you to do an autograph.
Yes, of course. Yeah, pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. I think I like being a student more than I like being in Blur, actually.
Being a student's not always like that, to be honest. So Damon was saying in that interview I read, he'd be interested in trying to crack America again, but he said he didn't want to do any more UK gigs.
Really?
Which really upset me. One of my regrets in life is missing the Hyde Park gigs. I had an exam that was something ridiculous. And I thought, they'll do a tour after that. And then you didn't. I was like, no.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what.
Having a picture taken with my friend.
No, of course.
Because they're too scared to ask.
Hello. Have you had some cheese?
Yeah, lovely. So good.
Thank you very much. I really don't know what the fuck's going to happen.
Okay.
I wish I did. But it will be like putting the Blues Brothers back together.
Yeah.
Break me out of the monastery. I've become a sort of monk, haven't I? Cheese making.
Well, I mean, you've all got different identities now, really. Because like Dave's got he was stood for Labour, didn't he? And obviously Graham's got his solo stuff, and Dave's doing everything.
But I think we all needed to do that, you know.
Yeah.
It was good for all of us to not be in Blur, actually.
But at the same time, you can go back to that life sometimes, then come back to the cheese making, have the best of both worlds, really.
Well, hopefully. Yeah, it'd be nice.
What about any other sort of musical projects? 'Cause I know you did a bit with Bad Lieutenant.
Yeah, that was, well, New Order were my favourite band.
Yeah.
You know. I love... You from Macclesfield?
I'm from York.
York?
Yeah.
So something about it reminds me of the way the rhythm of your speech reminds me of the way New Order talk. No, but I love New Order, and so it's great to work with Burners. But I've got my hands full with the cheese, you know. I mainly sing with the kids, you know. Do a lot of sing Leadbelly with the kids. Do you know Leadbelly?
Yeah. Where do you see that?
I love Leadbelly. Can't believe.
What about Fat Les? What do you think to that?
Well, there's a football competition next year.
Yeah.
Maybe I might do a Vindaloo cheese, maybe.
That'd be great.
All right, saying Joe Strummer was involved in.
Yeah, not Vindaloo, but the less successful follow-up, Naughty Christmas, which is two people I've met's favourite ever record. That was Naughty Christmas. Yeah, dear old Joe. Yeah, miss him.
So do you still kind of after a day making cheese or whatever? Do you still sit down, you know, play a bit of bass, try to
playing bass on your own is a bit like playing football?
Yeah, I know it's rubbish.
But actually, I did pick one up on Monday.
Oh right.
Someone sent me one made out of a cigar box.
Oh really?
And I was like, this will never work. Ooh. And I was, you know, so I was riffing away. It's quite nice. But mainly singing with the kids. You know, kids in America, they like singing. Boys like ACD, little boys love ACDC.
Oh yeah.
They like Since You've Been Gone by Rainbow. They love, we had a lot of What's That Coming Up Over the Hill, is it a monster? They love that one. Yeah, I mean, singing, you know, it's actually, you know, you don't have to have 100,000 people watching you to make music make you feel absolutely amazing.
True.
You know, I get the same from singing with my kids as I do from... Well, actually, those shows were pretty special.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like having a garden, being a musician. You know, it's just a lovely thing to have, and it doesn't matter if you know you don't have to be doing it for money or necessarily. It's just something that you can somewhere you can go somewhere. And it's really it's a way of just like relaxing and after a hard day's cheesing it.
Yeah. What do your kids think of your music, out of interest?
They love Blur.
Good.
They and they like Fat Les as well.
Nice. Yeah.
They every day they ask me when Blur are going to get back together.
Really?
Every day, one of them does. Yeah.
How old's your eldest then?
7. So he was the only one who was old enough to see Blur when we got back together.
Right, yeah.
And none of them knew that I was ever in a band, really. They thought I was a conductor because I was learning how to conduct.
Oh, yeah.
Like
the reality music,
when Blur got back together. I remember looking over at the side of the stage at the first gig we did at Colchester and just see he was like looking at me, he was like...
Wow.
Just, I've never seen that look on his face before. Amazing.
So you should do another show so your other kids can see it. And so I can see it.
Well, that's what they say as well, yeah.
And you did the No Distance Left to Run film about the comeback. How was that?
Well, you know, they just sort of got on with it, really. You know, poor guys. You know, they're so bright-eyed and enthusiastic, and they turned up every day with their cameras and microphones, and you know, we'd all be like really grumpy and ignoring them. But they didn't break. They hung in there, and it's a good film.
Was there any meaning behind that title? I mean, I know it's the song, but was there any kind of double No Distance Left to Run? Was that?
Well, let's hope not.
Yeah. Do a sequel, lots of distance left to run.
Yeah.
So how often do you see the rest of the band? I know you were saying you meet up for...
Every month or two.
Yeah.
And do you go in the studio when you meet, or do you just meet socially? Or do you...
We haven't done any recording for a while. It is hard. It's hard enough trying to get an out, you know, 4 men in their 40s with families.
True.
It's like trying to get a meeting. It's major. You know, for an hour. It's like a major achievement. But you know, I tweet Graham and speak to Dave on the phone a bit. Keep up with what Damon's doing.
Yeah. Are you a fan of what he's done outside of Blur?
Yeah, Graham too. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's merit in everything both of them do.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.